Rebecca's pointing at me. It's time for me to say, hi, this is Albert Hartley. Welcome to the Hartley Law Group YouTube channel. Chewbacca's in the corner. You can't see him. He's off screen, but he's creeping me out a little bit. So I have in my Starbucks laden fingertips, look at that right there. This, I'm not going to show you this, but this, 28 years got condensed down into this document. Look at that, right? So we've been doing a series on divorce, and I'm going to continue doing that. And I brought my stipulation and separation agreement because this is the document that was formulated to dissolve my marriage on a civil basis. So last time we talked about sort of setting up from an emotional perspective on the divorce, and today it's gonna get ugly today a little bit, maybe, but I'm really obsessed on this new concept of being very clear and direct and transparent. I think maybe anytime there's a purge, and it could just be because I'm old now, and so it's just different. So I want to talk about divorce in a couple different ways. And the first thing, last time we talked about the emotional perspective. Today we were going to talk about some serious skills to get ready for the divorce. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because I consider catastrophic events to be really critical. Number one, death is a catastrophic event, cancer is a catastrophic event, and divorce. Those three things are the major things because they stop your life. I mean, you have to focus on that and that alone. And if you don't do it correctly, it can be really painful. So I know a lot of the gurus talk about successes, but to be honest with you, that's crap. Okay, you fail more than you succeed in life. And the bottom line is, if you don't prepare for the failures, you're not going to succeed. So let's talk about this. Number one, with a divorce, there's always a good and evil. There's always a right and wrong. And ultimately, what you're looking for is freedom. So I don't consider my alimony payments. Alimony payments, I consider them freedom payments, because there was a collapse in the relationship from some perspective. And so I have strong reasons and feelings why that took place. I divorced my ex-wife for certain specific reasons, which are not relevant here, but they're not over the things you would think. They're over certain principal things that I have started to live my life by in a way when I was a kid, that my parents taught me. And when those things started to conflict and I could not reconcile them, and clearly she didn't want to reconcile them, I divorced her, and it was important for me to do so. So I want to talk about the three areas we talked about yesterday. We talked about emotional preparation, spiritual preparation, and mechanics. And I use that term mechanics in a very specific way because there are very broad concepts in the mechanics of a divorce that are legal in nature. But I don't want to talk about the spiritual in this video. I want to talk about the mechanics of it. And the first thing I want to do is say, listen, everybody's circumstances are different. So the generalizations I make in these videos are not case specific. You should consult your lawyer. You should get a lawyer. Very specifically, I had a lawyer, and I'm a lawyer, but I got a lawyer. I've had multiple lawyers in this process. I fired two, got rid of a couple. It's just a process. I don't think divorce lawyers, I think they're like, I don't know, they're different. They don't have the same incentives that I think a lot of people do who do law like I do. So you have to be very careful. I think riding that horse to the end is a rare thing. You should be very clear about the type of strategic lawyers you're hiring during the different phases of the process. But anything I say here, you have to put toward your lawyer in your own specific circumstances. Do not rely upon what I say here. What I want to see, Corey's now doing the sound. He's doing sound over here. What's going on? So chaos. It's chaos in this place. So the first thing I want you to think about doing when you're setting up for the mechanics of a divorce, number one, acknowledge that something's going on. So for the last 11 years of my personal relationship with my ex-wife, it just wasn't working for her for whatever reason. So there was clearly a disconnect. And so I want to talk today about the mechanics of setting up for the divorce. You have to prepare yourself for the divorce. And I always consider myself to be planning on two levels. Number one, the reality, and on the hope. And so, I'll be frank with you. My heart was broken, so that hope was dashed. I had to deal with the harsh reality of the responsibilities I had in my life. And so what I did when I felt like when she left is I set up an advisory board. And I think this is a really important process. If you go through a catastrophic event, death, cancer, divorce, those three things are catastrophic events, okay? Get a board of advisors. My board of advisors set up of 3 people, and then I have a sub-board. Yes, that sounds weird. I get it. I'm weird. But when you have a lot of things going on in your life, you need people who give you perspective. So I had a board, and then I had a sub-board. My board was made up of my best friend of 37 years, Richard, my sister. She was part of my family, obviously. and then my youth pastor from many, many years ago. And so they covered three areas. My sister covered my family's perspective and what we were reared to believe in. I had a lot of respect for her because she went through some marital issues and she was really courageous in the way she handled it. So I got a lot of inspiration from her. And it was great for us because we kind of reconciled a little bit on some things we had conflict over, and it was really awesome, and I really indebted to her. The second thing was my friend Richard, who has been my friend since I was 7, and so he was focused more on logistics and money. He also knew my ex-wife since we were 7, so he had a really interesting perspective of what my life was like. He was my best friend at my wedding, obviously, and so he was really important to talk about my financial circumstances, my business circumstances, and my personal circumstances. So he was really a critical part of that. And then my youth pastor, and he was in Bulgaria, but I used him primarily to have an input on the right and wrongness of an action I was about to take, and to make sure that was complying with what I thought was important. My sub board was all my boys from college who are my best friends for 26 years now, and some other friends. My sub board. So those guys were very supportive, and I mean it's a lot of people. But you go through a catastrophic event, you need a lot of support. So, and then, my therapist that I've had for the last 72 weeks, since my wife left, I met with him the first week, and I've been meeting with him every week. Y'all didn't know I had a therapist. Well, guess what? This cruise ship needs a lot of crew to maintain that situation. So my primary care physician was very much in touch with me. My therapist was very much in touch with me. And so this is the board I put together to get myself through this because it's a big deal. All right, so let's talk about the plan of action. So when you've got your board of advisors, you need to identify some goals. And so I set out when I realized I was going to divorce her because of her actions. And I want to make sure we're clear about something. I divorced her. Okay? I gave her an opportunity to reconcile. She refused to do that. I don't know what's going on with her. I divorced her. Okay? So contrary to whatever's out there, you have to make a decision whether you're going to divorce somebody or stay with somebody. Do not get caught in the middle of that. If you're going to divorce somebody, then you have to have, I think, 3 areas of plan of action. Number 1, are you going to look at monetary issues versus your assets? I always talk about give me invoices, not invitations. I don't want invitations. So when I wanted to divorce her, I wanted her out of my life. I wanted to be able to move on with the world that I had created for my family that she did not want to be a part of anymore, and I wanted that. That was important to me, okay? So my law firm, my businesses, my friends, my daughters, I did not want her involved in the rest of my life. She didn't want to be a part of my life anymore, so I wanted her gone. So I wanted invoices. So alimony is an invoice. For me, it's tax deductible, but whatever. It's an invoice. And then thirdly, I think you got to decide to play the long game. And the long game is what Richard called, this is going to be the long slog is his word, because you just got to know him. But when you determine that's a long slog, I look at it this way. You're getting ready to go into a swamp. You can't get your feet picked up. It's going to be muddy and nasty. There is a plan at the end of it, and you have to prepare yourself that it's not going to get over quickly, okay? So I had planned for the divorce to take 3 to 5 years based on everything that was going on. It did not take that long, because we had found a target zone, which I'm going to talk about getting to a target zone in a minute. But you have to play the long game. Wrong will not win out over the long time, but you have to play that game. So what you have to be very careful of is what I see many people do is they determine that value versus cash analysis, and they choose cash versus value. And so you have to bet on yourself. So that's the last thing in this little discussion. Out of those 3 things, money versus assets, invoices versus invitations, and the long game, you have to bet on yourself. You have to bet on the fact that you're going to get out of this thing and you're going to be more successful than you were before. And if you do that, that's a long-term strategy. So do not get caught up or tripped up by your lawyer or your friends or your family who try to, fight over this stupid, whatever, the lawnmower or whatever. That's stupid. I put all her crap in storage, okay? Done. Go get that crap on your own time. I'm not dealing with it. I want to get rid of the house. I want to get rid of the cars. I just want to get out of it. Because the long game isn't about the lawnmower. That's a short game, all right? So when you do that, you got your board of advisors, you got your plan of action. Let's talk about how you get ready. So here are some warning signs that your marriage is about to dissolve, okay? If you see these things, it's probably over. So it is not smart to not prepare when you see these things happening in your relationship. The number one thing is contempt. That's my personal opinion. It could be, there's probably some psychological things around it. But for me, contempt is this person hates your guts. There you go. You're done. Okay. Number two, when you see a consistent form of selfishness where the family goals no longer matter. Let me say that again. When you see a consistent form of selfishness where the family goals do not matter. Thirdly, one foot's already into another life. You start that and you already see, you're like, I don't fit into this new life. I'm out. Do not assume you're going to get that foot back in the old life, because that's probably done. Fourth, you see a lot of individual goals versus family goals. There's all this sort of me talk. Well, that's pretty much indicating that you no longer have a family unit. That's going to be a problem, okay? And then finally, and this is the biggest one, I think every family has a set of principles they live their life by. We had a set of principles. Once those principles start to be violated by one of the members of the family, I don't care if it's your kid, your spouse, you are destroying what you built. Those principles that's the long game. So once those principles, and I'm talking about whether or not you believe in natural law versus moral relativism, and you see that just 86, it's done. That is not going to be complied with. You're not going to be able to reconcile those two perspectives. So, and that happens, you have to start making a decision at that moment. And that moment is, all right, let's be realistic here. My marriage is probably going to end in divorce because I cannot reconcile these violations of these 4 or 5 things with this person. It's just not going to happen. I want it to get corrected, but it's just not going to happen. Lastly, if that's the case, then you have to prepare yourself financially. Now, so this is what I see a lot of people not do correctly. And this is what I want to finish this little talk with. Once you see these signs and you've got your board of advisors and you've got it ready to go, you have to make a determination on how you're going to attack the divorce. And what I mean by that is there are 2 strategies that you can employ, frankly, to finish the divorce out. One is you throw debt at it. What I mean by that is debt is a marital thing. It's got to be dealt with. You basically suffocate the relationship with the debt, and then that relationship will fall apart, and then you can have a survival technique after that. The other way is you just buy yourself out. You have the assets, you divide them up. So that's the decision you got to make. For a lot of people, they don't have a lot of money, so the debt is the way to go, and you just focus on that, divide that up, and get out. The other way is asset-based, and if you know you're going to write checks anyway, just get it up front and be done with it. You can always make more money, okay? So once you decide which direction you're going in, whether it's going to be a debt-based strategy or an asset-based strategy, then make it very clear what you're trying to accomplish. Do not mix the emotional and the financial. That's a mistake. If you had the emotional straight, you wouldn't be in a financial situation. It'd already be done. I mean, that's not a problem. I mean, when you start seeing the emotional separation, the financial's coming. So let's just be clear. You have to be very strategic. Meet with your board of advisors. I think I met with my guys, I met with Richard probably 3 times a day. At least. We talked 3 to 5 times a day. And people say, wow, how much? Because every minute of the day something changed. There was an emotional aspect of it that came into play. There was a financial aspect that came into play. There were strategies. The day we mediated to get this lovely document, right, which I never thought, frankly, I'd ever have in my life. That was never a goal for me. We talked literally for hours the day before, and we talked that day multiple times. And I had counsel. But I didn't trust my counsel more than I trusted my best friend and my board of advisors because they knew me. And that's something you need to take into effect, is that your lawyer doesn't know you. That's a job for them, okay? Ultimately, it's an hourly retainer for them. Your board of advisors, they should love you, care about you, and know you. If they do that, they will give you the best advice. It may not be the most pleasant circumstances at the moment, but the long term is going to be beneficial. So I use this sort of talk to just set people up and say, listen, once you've got all this stuff set and you know you're going in that direction, you have to apply the following strategy to this divorce, which is it a debt game or is it an equity game? The long-term strategy is the same. It's divorce, but it's going to determine how you move forward in that process. And if it's a debt game, there's strategies that go with that. And if it's an equity game, it's a strategy to go with that. And so over the next series of weeks, we're going to be talking about, well, if it's a debt game, here's how you do it. And if it's an equity game, this is how you do it. Ultimately, you're trying to survive and do the best you can with your life and maybe move on. So I'd love some feedback. And if you've got any questions, hit us up on YouTube. You can also post on our Facebook page. I think we got Instagram, which is cool. And then we're checking something out called Twitch, which I'm all excited about, which is going to be certainly awesome. So we're doing that. So I look forward to hearing from you. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Thanks.